I'm Bill Hubsher.
And I'm Lori Meggs, and we're standing in front of Marshall's Propulsion Research Development Lab, where we'll look at technology that will test and model just about any launch vehicle imaginable.
Plus, we'll pay a visit to the Solar Wind Test Lab to see how Marshall is supporting the Solar Probe Plus program, a very ambitious mission to pay a visit to our very own star.
Oh, thanks.
Actually, I was talking about the sun.
Oh, okay.
And we'll learn a little bit about the new social networking tool for Marshall employees.
All right, so let's get to it. I'm here in the Propulsion Research Development Lab with Kendall Junin, and we're here in the control room for the actual hardware in the loop lab. And other than a tongue twister, Kendall, what is the hardware in the loop lab?
It's actually two laboratories that are co-located. One's an avionics development lab, and the other is a hydraulics component lab. And the two together allow us to test and develop control systems for launch vehicles.
And this is a unique capability here at Marshall, right?
It is. It was developed under Ares, and we're now reconfiguring it, getting ready for SLS program. And that's the beauty of this laboratory, is it's a virtual environment where we can plug in analytical models of any launch vehicle and start to build it up. And as hardware comes in, we replace virtual models with actual hardware components, and that allows us to do troubleshooting, fault injection, and understand how the system operates and how robust it is. And then when we marry it with what we call an end effector or a servo actuator that's actually pushing on the nozzle and steering the vehicle, it allows us to see how the end-to-end control system behaves.
What types of things have you tested in this lab?
We did a demonstration of the Ares first stage control system. We also have some development servo actuators that were developed on previous programs, and those represent the next generation in technology. We'll call it a TVC in a box system. TVC is thrust vector control, and it will hopefully save us a lot of money, lower our operational footprint for a launch vehicle.
And it's very important, this lab is, to the future of spacecraft, right?
This is where we're going to develop SLS control system, and a lot of the analytical models, flex body, propellant slosh, all those kind of models will come in here, and we'll start to first virtually put the system together, and then as we develop hardware for SLS, we'll bring it in here and test it.
All right, well, hopefully you'll invite us back. Thanks so much, Kendall.
You bet.
We're here with Dr. Jonathan Surton, and he is a solar physicist at the Marshall Space Flight Center. And Dr. Surton, tell us about this great new project you're working on called Solar Probe Plus.
Okay, NASA recently selected a new mission, Solar Probe Plus, to study the sun's corona and how the sun's solar wind is accelerated. As part of that mission, Marshall Space Flight Center, partnering with the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, is going to build a suite of instruments to study the sun's solar wind and hopefully measure the location at which the solar wind is accelerated.
Now, speaking of those instruments, they will be tested right here in an actual test bed we're standing next to. Tell us how this is going to work.
This unique experiment test bed here at Marshall Space Flight Center can simulate the sun's solar wind. It can accelerate electrons and protons along its beamline, and we can use those electrons and protons to measure the fidelity of the instruments that we'll build for Solar Probe Plus. We'll augment the facility so that it actually represents the in situ environment we expect to encounter as we fly to well within the sun's outer corona, 40 times closer to the sun than the planet Mercury, and use the modifications to the facility so that we can make sure that our instrument's going to work at the thousands of degrees we expect the instruments to need to work within the sun's atmosphere.
So we're not talking about studying from the surface of the planet or even from Earth orbit. You're talking about actually going into the sun.
We are going to fly into the sun's atmosphere, effectively the stratosphere of the sun, if you want to think about it in terms that people can appreciate relative to the Earth. But it'll be the last place within the solar system humankind is yet to explore.
I imagine it's difficult to design instruments, though, that can survive that kind of environment.
Within the Marshall workforce, there are a lot of unique individuals with unique experiences. They had to build the space shuttle. They had to build the International Space Station. NASA has developed expertise in materials, and we will use that expertise to develop materials that will exist within the sun's atmosphere. In particular, we're going to be using silicon carbide as part of the primary portion of the instrument that will see the sun directly, and we will test that silicon carbide material here in this unique facility to make sure that it's going to stand up to the environment within the sun's atmosphere.
Jonathan, how does Solar Probe Plus fit into NASA's overall mission?
Solar Pro Plus, and specifically the sweep instruments that we'll build in part here at Marshall Space Flight Center, are going to help us understand why the sun's corona is so hot, but more importantly for humankind directly, how is it accelerated, what is its content, how does it propagate out to Earth. We'll use that information to help us protect our spacecraft, the International Space Station, and humans as we expand out to the moon and further out into the solar system.
Well, this sounds like a very exciting and pioneering project, and we look forward to following your progress.
Thank you very much. It was good to talk to you today.
I'm here with Jonathan Pettis, and he is the Chief Information Officer here at Marshall. And Jonathan, we are excited about launching a new social media tool here at Marshall. Tell us what ExplorNet is.
We're really excited about it as well. It is a tool that's very similar to tools like Facebook and Twitter that our employees are certainly familiar with. However, it's designed to deliver those same sort of collaboration and communication features to employees internal to Marshall.
What are the benefits to Marshall employees, and what are some of its features?
Well, some of the features are very similar to features that you'd find in these public social networking tools. So employees can have a profile, and in that profile they can have their photo, they can establish their interest, they can enter into their profile the projects that they've worked, the expertise that they've developed, and then they can connect with other employees, and they can participate in what we call communities.
You talk about collaboration. That's a big deal around here, and it was back in the Von Braun days too, right?
That's right. In fact, in preparing for this project, and we have done a pilot where we've had about 300 users testing out the product over the last several months. But in preparing, we went back and looked at some of the communication styles that existed back in the Apollo era. And Dr. Von Braun was well known for his work in pioneering communication up and down and across the organization with something that we still call weekly notes. So they could see what his questions were, what was important to him, and then he was able to basically get information back from leaders across the center and then share all that information with employees across the center. And so it really was sort of an early way to implement sort of a social network, but in a manual way.
Is there anything else Marshall employees need to know about getting into this?
Well, we're going to make it seamless so that you don't have to log in, but we'll actually ensure that when you log into your computer in the morning, the password and the account that you use will allow you to log right into ExplorNet. So you can create a blog, you can respond to other people's blog, you can join the communities that are there, you can establish your profiles. But really what this is about is allowing people across the center to connect with one another, share what's going on in their organization, their projects, ask questions, get help, find other people who are interested in the same topics they're interested in. And so really we're trying to develop, create a more open dialogue about what's happening at Marshall in terms of the work and the activities, and allow employees to participate in that.
All right, very exciting. I'm going to go work on my profile right now. Thanks, Jonathan.
Very good.
Bill, it's exciting to see all the research and science that Marshall is participating in with our partners and other centers.
Oh, it takes a great big team to make all of this happen.
It sure does. Find out where we turn up next as we focus on Marshall.